welcome to our latest critique. Today we are reviewing an English language learning slide deck designed for the SpeakDuo platform, centered around a Neil Patrick Harris interview video and focusing on teaching advanced vocabulary expressions.
I'm really excited to get into this one. The material makes a strong case for interactive learning by highlighting clear definitions alongside immediate practice questions. So let's dive directly into how we can strengthen this curriculum.
Right, so jumping right in, the lesson's vocabulary examples currently operate in isolation, missing a valuable opportunity to reinforce the theme of the anchor video.
Yeah, I noticed that immediately when reviewing the file.
It's a significant weakness. When a student opens this deck, the very first thing they experience is this incredibly engaging, wired autocomplete interview with Neil Patrick Harris. It's fun, it's dynamic, and it immediately sets a very specific expectation.
Exactly. As a learner, your brain is instantly primed for topics surrounding Hollywood, acting, celebrity culture, the entertainment industry.
But then, the moment we transition to the actual vocabulary practice slides, that entire world just vanishes. For example, when teaching the phrase to feel inept, the slide uses a scenario about someone failing to fold a fitted bedsheet.
Right. And for knowing one's way around something, the examples jump to a mother baking cakes or someone cooking a burrito in New Mexico.
It just gives the learner mental whiplash. They are constantly forced to context switch from one random domestic scenario to another instead of building a cohesive mental framework around the media we just spent time having them watch.
I mean, I see your point about the jarring transitions, but let me just push back on that a little bit from a pedagogical perspective. Isn't part of the ultimate goal for an advanced language learner to be able to use these idioms in a wide variety of everyday situations?
Absolutely, eventually.
Right, because if we exclusively talk about Hollywood and acting, aren't we risking that the student won't know how to apply a phrase like knowing one's way around to something common like navigating a new city or cooking a meal? How do we balance thematic immersion with the practical, real-world utility of the vocabulary?
That is a completely fair question, and you absolutely want them to generalize the vocabulary later on. But we have to look at this through the lens of initial acquisition, that fragile moment when a student is first trying to anchor a brand new, highly nuanced idiom in their brain.
Ah, okay. The initial cognitive load.
Exactly. In that specific moment, context switching is incredibly taxing. Instructional designers often refer to this as the cognitive switching penalty. Think of it like walking into a theater to watch a highly immersive, tense sci-fi movie, and right in the middle of the climax, the characters stop to look at the camera and discuss how to file their annual taxes.
Wow, yeah. That completely rips you out of the experience. It breaks the spell of the classroom.
It really does. When an adult student is already burning massive amounts of mental energy just trying to grasp the subtle cultural difference between being snarky and just being outright rude, pulling them into entirely unrelated domestic or culinary scenarios breaks their concentration. They are forced to process the new vocabulary word while simultaneously processing the entirely new, random context of New Mexico burrito making.
That makes a lot of sense when you frame it around cognitive load. You're saying we should remove the friction of the surrounding environment so the student can dedicate 100% of their processing power to mastering the vocabulary itself.
Exactly. So my suggestion here is to integrate the theme of the anchor video directly into the vocabulary examples and practice prompts to create a unified narrative thread from the opening slide to the final activity.
Okay, so how do we fix this practically? Are we talking about a complete rewrite of the example sentences?
Let's look at some concrete examples of how to do this. Take the section teaching the phrase to go places. Right now, the prompt asks the student to discuss a friend who has a painting hobby.
Right, which is perfectly fine English, but totally disconnected.
Exactly. Instead of discussing a friend's painting hobby for to go places, frame the example around a talented new actor starting their career. The prompt could become, think of an upcoming actor you recently watched in a small indie film. Why do you think they're going to go places in Hollywood?
Oh, I really like the sound of that. It keeps them firmly anchored in the ecosystem of that initial interview. What about some of the more specific, nuanced words in the deck?
Like which ones?
Well, take a parody, for example. The source material currently suggests discussing a generic horror movie where the monsters are just clumsy.
That feels a bit closer to the realm of entertainment, but still fairly disconnected from a celebrity interview context. How would we tighten that up?
For a parody rather than a generic horror movie prompt, ask the learners to discuss a famous comedic parody sketch Neil Patrick Harris or a similar actor might have participated in. You could frame it around hosting an award show or appearing on Saturday Night Live.
That works perfectly. You're teaching the exact same definition, a creative work that intentionally exaggerates a distinct style for comedic effect, but the container holding the lesson remains entirely unified.
We can do this for every single word. For to keep one's fingers crossed, instead of hoping for good weather on a picnic, the example could be an actor keeping their fingers crossed after a major blockbuster audition.
And for the word heartfelt, instead of a generic apology to a neighbor, you frame it around a heartfelt acceptance speech at the Oscars.
You've got it. And what about to be snarky? The original draft uses an example about judges on a cooking show. We just pivot it slightly. Try something like, describe a time a late-night talk show host was delightfully snarky while interviewing a celebrity.
That completely transforms the feeling of the lesson. The learner enters the virtual classroom, watches an interview, and then essentially role-plays within the universe of that interview for the rest of the session. It takes a disconnected list of phrases and turns it into an immersive, contextual experience.
It really does. And that progression through the vocabulary naturally leads us into how the students are actually practicing these words, which brings up another structural issue.
Okay, let's hear it.
The progression of the breakout room activities lacks a clear pedagogical trajectory for building conversational autonomy.
Yeah, let's really examine how the students are being asked to interact here, because I noted this as well. The deck features 3 distinct breakout rooms throughout the lesson, but the instruction slide for each one is identical.
It literally just says, time to practice. Use these expressions with your partner. That is the exact weakness here. The document simply repeats the exact same basic instruction for breakout rooms 1, 2, and 3.
They are just given the same static list of questions to ask each other.
Right, and this flat structure fails to scaffold the learner's skills, keeping them at the same level of guided repetition rather than pushing them toward advanced, unprompted language usage.
I can certainly see how that might feel a bit repetitive to a student, but maybe the designer was relying on the idea that repetition breeds familiarity. Like, if a student is wrestling with a complex psychological phrase like imposter syndrome, maybe they genuinely need to see that same prompt 3 times to finally feel comfortable saying it aloud. Is there a danger in moving them away from that safety net too quickly?
Repetition is undoubtedly important, but if they are just staring at the same slide 3 times in a row, they aren't actually internalizing the vocabulary. They are just reading aloud. In adult education, especially at the advanced level SpeakDuo targets, we rely heavily on a concept called fading.
Fading, like gradually removing support.
Exactly. Think of it like teaching someone to ride a bicycle. Breakout room 1 represents the training wheels. You have them bolted on tightly, but if you keep those training wheels on for rooms 2 and 3, the rider never actually learns how to balance their own weight.
Right. So by repeating the exact same prompt, this curriculum keeps the training wheels firmly bolted on the entire time.
Yes, so my suggestion is to restructure the breakout sessions so that each room introduces a progressively more complex and independent communicative task, gradually removing the training wheels.
The training wheels analogy really clarifies the issue. If the end goal is natural, unprompted conversation, you can't get there by just reading a script over and over. So let's collaboratively build out some concrete examples for this. If breakout room 1 is our foundation with the training wheels fully on, what does that actually look like in the slides?
Breakout room 1 could remain focused on having learners directly answer the provided example questions. This is the comfort zone. They have the slides, they have the definitions explicitly written out, and they take turns answering direct questions provided on the screen.
Like, have you ever experienced imposter syndrome in your career?
Exactly. It builds baseline confidence. They get to hear their partner say the word, they get to try pronouncing it themselves with the safety net right in front of them, and it ensures their basic comprehension is solid before we escalate the cognitive demand.
Right, so they've got the pronunciation down, they understand the basic context, and they feel safe. They come back to the main session, maybe get some quick feedback or correction from the platform. Now we send them into breakout room 2. How do we raise the training wheels just a bit without completely overwhelming them?
Breakout Room 2 could require a collaborative storytelling exercise where partners must seamlessly weave three target expressions into a shared narrative.
Oh, okay. So we shift them from passive reading to active creation.
Right. We can even keep our Hollywood theme going. Student A might have to start a story about a hotshot movie director who secretly feels inept on set. Then student B has to naturally continue the story about a young camera operator who is definitely going to go places, all while maintaining a coherent, logical plot.
I love the dynamic of that. That is a massive leap in engagement. They aren't just reciting anymore, they have to actively listen to their partner.
Exactly.
Because if student A takes the story in a weird direction, student B has to adapt on the fly to ensure their own contribution makes chronological and grammatical sense. It forces them to manipulate the vocabulary in real time.
Precisely. Let's play that out for a second. Student A says, "The director felt so inept that he dropped the camera." Student B can't just read a sentence. They have to say, "Yes, and the camera operator caught it," proving she's really going to go places. It requires genuine mental agility.
It really does. You are forcing the brain to retrieve the word and format it to fit in unpredictable context. And that sets us up perfectly for the final push.
Exactly. Breakout Room 3 could involve a free-form role-play scenario, such as a mock job interview or a debate, where learners must naturally utilize terms like inept, snarky, or imposter syndrome without looking at the prompts.
So the key instruction here is that they must close the vocabulary slide entirely. No notes, no definitions on screen, total conversational freefall.
That's it. You assign them a high-pressure scenario, maybe a mock job interview for a cutthroat entertainment agency, or a heated debate over whether a massive blockbuster movie is a brilliant piece of art or just a cheap parody. The goal is to see if these words arise naturally in the heat of an unscripted conversation.
It perfectly mirrors the natural process of language acquisition in the real world. You hear a word, you practice it in a safe, controlled environment, you try stringing it together in a complex sentence with a friend, and eventually it just slips out organically during a passionate debate.
Exactly. And by keeping the instructions flat in the original draft, the designer accidentally robbed the students of that vital evolutionary process. This tiered approach is a fantastic way to elevate the material.
It really is. Now, speaking of the overall user journey, there's another major pacing issue that happens right at the beginning of the deck that we need to talk about.
Yes, the immediate placement of detailed promotional material disrupts the initial educational engagement of the lesson.
Right after the title slide, before the student has even watched the interview or seen a single vocabulary word, the presentation drops a massive, incredibly dense feature list for the 7-day free trial of SpeakDuo Pro.
That's the exact weakness here. Presenting the full 7-day free trial feature list, including unlimited sessions, AI feedback, and partner choices immediately after the title slide interrupts the momentum of the lesson before the student has experienced the actual value of the content.
It's essentially a wall of marketing text. It stops the momentum of the lesson cold. This is a huge pet peeve of mine from a user experience perspective.
It risks alienating the learner right when their attention needs to be captured by the educational material.
It's exactly like downloading a new recipe app because you want to learn how to bake a cake, and before you can even see the list of ingredients, you are hit with a massive pop-up demanding a 12-month premium subscription. I haven't even cracked an egg yet. My guard immediately goes up.
Exactly.
I mean, I understand platforms need to convert free users to paid users. It's a business. But isn't there a significant risk that prioritizing the monetization funnel this early actually damages the conversion rate? The trust simply hasn't been established yet.
It absolutely damages trust. In digital education, we talk constantly about time to value. Time to value is the most critical metric for user retention. If the learner has to sit through a commercial before they even learn what imposter syndrome means, they are going to emotionally check out.
Right. The affective filter goes up.
Exactly. When a student feels annoyed, pressured, or defensive, their affective filter goes up, and it literally blocks their brain from absorbing new language input. So my suggestion here is to shift the comprehensive promotional slide to the end of the lesson, utilizing contextual, bite-sized feature callouts natively during the exercises instead.
That is a much more elegant approach. You transition the platform from aggressively selling to organically demonstrating value. But let's look at it from the curriculum designer's perspective for a moment.
Sure.
They likely have mandates from their marketing team to ensure these pro features are highly visible throughout the session. How do we keep the premium features top of mind without being intrusive or breaking that delicate thematic immersion we worked so hard to build in the first half of our critique?
We do it through seamless problem-solution integration. Let's talk about some concrete examples. First, move the main subscription text to the final "Thanks for coming" slide.
Right? At the end of the lesson, the student is feeling a sense of accomplishment.
Exactly. They've just successfully debated a movie using advanced idioms, their confidence is high, and they've realized how much they genuinely learned from the platform. At that exact emotional peak, they are highly receptive to a message that says, "Want to keep improving? Try our 7-day free trial."
Sure, the end of the lesson makes perfect sense for the hard pitch. They are riding that high of mastering new vocabulary. But what about those contextual callouts you mentioned during the lesson? How do you drop a feature mention into the middle of a vocabulary exercise without it feeling like an annoying, disruptive pop-up ad?
To maintain awareness of the pro features without breaking immersion, insert a subtle contextual banner during the vocabulary practice phase. You tie it directly to a specific pain point the student is experiencing in that exact second.
Give me an example of that.
Let's say the slide is presenting the pronunciation breakdown for the word inet. The source material specifically highlights that you have to start with a light Y sound, followed by a relaxed eh sound. That is a notoriously difficult phonetic transition for many non-native speakers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they are looking at that slide, and they are probably feeling a bit of anxiety about saying it out loud. Right there on the slide, you insert a tiny, unobtrusive banner that says, "Tip: use our AI feedback tool to check your pronunciation of inept."
Oh, I see exactly what you were doing there. It doesn't read as an advertisement at all. It reads as an educational tip that just happens to require a premium feature.
Precisely.
It identifies a moment of high anxiety, worrying if they are pronouncing a tricky word correctly in front of their peers, and immediately offers the pro feature as the specific, targeted solution to that anxiety. It feels helpful rather than purely transactional.
Exactly. You are connecting the promotional material directly to the pedagogical action the student is currently undertaking. Another great place for this is right before the breakout rooms.
Oh yeah, like when introducing Breakout Room 2, where they have to do that collaborative storytelling we designed?
Right. A small banner could say, "Tip: with SpeakDuo Pro, you can choose partners from specific regions to practice different global accents during these exercises."
That is brilliant because it actually enhances the exercise rather than interrupting it. If I am a student, I might think, oh, it would be really cool to try this storytelling exercise with someone from London next time so I can practice listening to a British accent. It respects the user.
It's a win for the user's educational experience and a win for the business's conversion metrics.
The listener who submitted this curriculum clearly cares deeply about providing high-quality definitions and practical interactive opportunities. By simply restructuring when and how the promotional material is delivered, we remove the friction that might prevent students from fully appreciating the hard work put into the lesson design.
Exactly. So to recap, this material has excellent bones, but can be significantly enhanced by focusing on a few key areas.
Yeah, let's summarize those takeaways.
First, unify the lesson by threading the theme of the anchor video through all the vocabulary examples.
Second, scaffold the breakout rooms to provide a progressive challenge that builds conversational autonomy.
Moving them from the training wheels to full, unprompted role play.
Right. And finally, reposition the heavy promotional material to the end of the presentation to preserve the learner's initial engagement.
Swapping the wall of text for those helpful, contextual, bite-sized callouts.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing this curriculum with us, and we highly encourage you to submit the revised version back in for another critique once these updates are applied.